Okay, Ayla.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I went out.
So we'd just like to thank everyone for coming for Tim's celebration of life. We'll start with his obituary and then a few words from Stephen as the officiant, and then move on to his eulogy and everything else.
Timothy Johnston passed away May 7th, 2023 at the age of 70 in Lethbridge, Alberta. Tim is predeceased by his parents Ivan and Beatrice, his brother Bruce. Tim had 5 brothers and 2 sisters. He was born in Lacombe, Alberta in 1952. He got his gas filter license in 1979. From then he worked in the gas and oil industry for many years. When Tim came to Fort Macleod, he had interests in buying and renovating houses. Tim eventually acquired the American Hotel, and he was very proud of that. Some of Tim's passions included painting, collecting antiques, traveling, visiting with friends, and most of all, spending time with his nieces and having barbecues and feasts. Tim liked to spend his winters in Mazatlan, Mexico, where he would bask in the beautiful sun, and he also had made some good friendships during his times there. Tim had a very big heart. He was loving, thoughtful, hardworking man who could accomplish anything he put his mind to. He will be greatly missed by all who really knew him. Left to mourn his loss are his nieces Tria, Josie, and Zaya Bishop, his adopted sister, Tracy Hunt, and his adopted children, Ayla and Maria Bishop, his brothers Orville, Donnie, Elmer, and Garth, sisters Ruth and Leona. Tim has also made many good friends along all his journeys. He will miss him dearly. Stephen, if you'd like to come up and say a few words.
Well, welcome everyone to memorial service for friend Tim. I started going to church here about 5 years ago, and that's when I started meeting Tim. He'd come by. I was telling Garth here before, I think mostly for the food.
It's true.
I don't think he sat through too many sermons. I could be wrong, but he'd come in and talk about the hotel sometimes and what he was doing, storing stuff and building things. And, so that was about all I knew of Tim until last year. A group of us had been praying here, a couple guys, for what to do for some of the needy ones in town. And someone came up with the idea, well, why not work on a housing project? And we said, yeah, that's maybe not a bad idea. We'll pray about that. Someone else came up with the idea, why don't we try buy the American Hotel?
It's for sale.
I said, it's not for sale. I said, I know the owner a little bit. I said, he has a reputation for running anybody off who comes to look at it. I said, people tell me he's really cantankerous. I never noticed that. I said, but I've heard when it comes to the hotel, he's really cantankerous. Well, I asked Tracy, where's Tim? And she said, he's in Mexico all winter. So I told the group, well, he's in Mexico. So we kept praying about the hotel. And come springtime, we heard he was back, and I was selected to talk to Tim about the hotel. So Maria gave me his number, and I said, Tim, remember me? And Stephen, yeah, oh yeah, he remembered me. I said, I wanted to talk to you about your hotel. He said, what do you want to know about it? It's for sale. I said, said, I thought it was never for sale. Well, it is now. And he said, I'm at A&W. Come over. So I came over. He said, what do you want to know about the hotel? Well, I said, some of us may have an interest in buying it. He said, what for? I said, well, we're trying to imagine a safe Christian housing solution for some of the neediest people in our town. We don't know what that looks like, but that's our goal. He said, well, I want to sell the hotel to you. I said, that fast? Yup, he said. That's the best idea I've heard about my hotel yet, he said. So I said, do you want to know some more about me? He said, sure. We didn't stop talking for 4 hours. And I told him the whole story, the whole story of my life. I told him how I became a follower of Jesus when I was a teenager. Ran away from him for a number of years until my early 30s. And came back in my early 30s. And amazingly enough, even started going to church 5 years ago. And here I am. So I took him to my house and fed him another meal and met my family and my wife and kids. And he said, well, keep talking to me about that hotel. I said, yeah, we'll do our best. So I'd show up at his house quite often. As you all know, he didn't believe in having utilities. Right? I said, Tim, why are you living like this? He said, there isn't any better way to live. I said, what about running water and electricity and those kinds of things? I don't need them. It's just the power companies in the town trying to steal from you. Things like that.
Unfortunately, it's the truth.
And he'd keep asking me about the hotel. What are you thinking about it? So I talked some more. And finally I said, well, we'd like to try buy it, but we don't have the money to pay for the hotel outright. He said, Stephen, any way I can get you to buy that hotel, I'll do it. And I said, well, how about we pay you this much per month? He said, nope, too much. I said, why is that too much? He said, if it's too much, you might not be able to do your project. That was his attitude towards selling the hotel. He said, look, Steve, I'm on my way up here. He said, the most good I can do before I leave this earth, all the better. And that was his attitude. And so he bent over backwards to sell that hotel to us. It was the biggest surprise we had, right? And he loved talking about our thoughts about the hotel. Garth said to me before, remember to tell him he had a heart of gold, and he did. The other thing he talked about every time was those grandkids. His, what you call his nieces and nephews. Tria, Josie, Leah. He said, you know what, if I can leave a legacy for those 3 little girls, he said, if I can leave that hotel to some good purpose, I'm happy. And so Tim was pretty aware of his own mortality. I'm a doctor, as some of you know, in town, and so as a doctor, we're pretty aware of human mortality. The end comes whenever. And I want to read a scripture. Before I do that, I'd like to say a prayer. Jesus, thank you for an opportunity to talk about Tim, talk about the good things he did. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about your promises. Amen. And thank you for all these people here. I pray for a special blessing. Tim would want me to pray a special blessing for each one of them today. Amen. Garth said, wherever Tim is right now, he won't mind whatever you say. How's that, right? Let me find the verse in the Christian New Testament, in the book of John, chapter 11. Not everyone remembers that Jesus said this, but I always have told my children since they were very small that it must be the craziest thing Jesus ever said. He said, and this was on the occasion of one of his best friends dying. It's associated with the shortest verse in the scripture. Anyone know what it is? 2 words. Jesus cried, Jesus wept. He said, everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. That's what he said. I always tell my children, to us human beings, that has got to be the craziest thing in the Bible. That's got to be the craziest thing in the Bible. Everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. I want to talk to you about one more passage in Luke chapter 19. Who here knows the story of Zacchaeus? He has a reputation in the Bible. Who knows what it is? He was very short. So short, in fact, that it was impossible for him to see someone who was surrounded by a crowd of people. And who did he want to see? He wanted to see Jesus. And he was too short. And so what do you know? When Jesus was about to walk by that way with a crowd of people around him, he climbed into a tree so that he could see Jesus. And he got to see Jesus because Jesus stopped under the tree, told him to come down, and went to his house. And somebody told me this a while ago, and I keep thinking about it. The very thing that prevented him from being able to see Jesus was the very thing that got him up close. He was too short. He climbed up into a tree. And here's the good news. I mean, there isn't a person in this room who isn't too short somewhere in there. A shortcoming of some kind. I don't care if it's me or any one of you. There's something that's short. There's something that's a big but. There's something that's a big exclamation mark. And you know, Tim, a lot of people didn't really think he amounted to much in this talent. Some people thought he was too cantankerous, some too eccentric, and he was eccentric. I'll say that, right? He was eccentric. But you know, I have a lot of hope that Tim didn't misplace what he was planning to do at the beginning. He had a really stunning acceptance of his own mortality. You saw the deal he made with us with that hotel. Yeah. Who makes deals like that? I said, Tim, you know that if I sign on this line, you could take this deal to anybody in town. I don't care, even if they hardly have a dime in their pocket. And they would sign too, right? He said, oh, I know. Yeah. This is the deal I'm making with you because I want to. The only reason he wanted to is because he wanted to accomplish the most good that he could imagine. Right? And I like to think that some of Tim's shortcomings were like that. The fact that he was too short. Someone let him do something that might be the greatest good. I don't know. When people die, we like to encourage each other to remember him. We like to encourage each other to live better. We like to encourage each other that, there's life after this. I'm sure I'd like to do all those things. But the biggest thing I'd like to see today is don't let your shortcomings keep you from Jesus. I let my own education and doubts and life experience keep me away from him for years. He was there waiting for me. Let me see what else I was going to say about Tim. Oh yeah. How about the fun times we had trying to decide about what to do with all of his stuff?
I helped him haul it all down here. Oh,
A couple of things, yeah.
Took
And then
all
the,
summer.
and then the problem I had sharing, telling other people that no, this had to be saved. In fact, it was valuable property. Right? You mean he wants to keep this? Yes. And it's less work for us to put it in his storage than to bring it to the dump. So don't argue with him. And I said, Tim, you don't have to be there when we empty your hotel. As part of the deal, he said, when do I have to have the hotel empty? I said, you know what, Tim, we're going to empty it for you. He said, why? I said, otherwise it'll never get empty. I said, because people are going to charge you a lot of money to get it empty, and all the money we pay you is going to go to trying to empty your hotel. So we'll put it in the deal. We empty the hotel. I said, but we watch your stuff, and every bit of it that you want to keep, you get to keep. And one other funny thing. Why did you put that wood outside? I said, Tim, I argued with you. All of those bikes, they didn't have to be inside, in your tool shop. In your tool shop. Remember the argument we had? There was a big guy who was helping us, and he didn't know that Tim was the owner. And he was responsible for bringing all the bikes. And Tim said, here, put them in the tool shop. And he said, oh, no, these bikes, not a single one of them is worth putting in this tool shop. Oh, no, put them in here. Oh, no, the big guy said, you don't understand. We want to reserve the room in the tool shop for tools. Well, he was a little embarrassed when Tim had to call the ownership card and say, I own this shop, and I own these bikes, and I want them all in this shop. But he wouldn't say anything when I told him later, well, you're the one that wanted the bikes in the tool shop, right? That's why some of your tools ended up outside. We just didn't have room. He had fun taking my kids for a spin, his rat rod.
Oh.
I'll miss him. When he came back, I prayed that he would live long enough to see the hotel done. He didn't, but I trust he's going to be aware of it nonetheless. I think that that only makes sense. I might think of something else later. We'll going to do a eulogy.
Yeah.
Maria? Thank you. Thanks.
Try to do this without crying so much. Tim was a father figure, an uncle, a brother, a pain, but most of all a friend. There were times you couldn't get a word in with him because he was telling such long, crazy stories. He had a passion like no other. And when he set his mind to something, he accomplished it most of the time. I know he enjoyed going to auctions and antique stores and buying whatever he could. This one time he went to an auction and bought 1,000 wheelchairs just because he could. He bought himself a toy car on his birthday one year and hid it behind his back so my mom wouldn't see it. When she asked what is behind his back, he looked at her like a little kid getting caught, showing her the car saying, Well, it's my birthday, then they both laugh. Tim enjoyed sitting at Matthew's watching him work on vehicles because he loved his vehicles, especially old cars, which he collected a lot of. Tim also enjoyed having coffee with his friends at either Tim Hortons or A&W, where they would sit and talk for hours. Tim also enjoyed taking trips to Mexico in the winter. The last time Tim went to Mexico, there was a big drug war thing going on, and the Mexican cartel was attacking tourists in the part where Tim was staying at. And he had no idea that anything was going on, so we phoned him to tell him, don't go outside because it's crazy there. And he had no idea and said that he'll go outside if he wants to. While he was in Mexico, he had a heart attack on December 26th, and oddly enough, that day I had my baby. So Tim must have knew big things were happening that day. After that, he was back at his apartment in Mexico. He phoned us to let us know what had happened and why he didn't call on Christmas, because every week or every other day he would phone us, but especially on Christmas, when we'd expect to hear from him. So when he finally called, we told him I had my baby, and he was overjoyed that he had another baby to spoil. And he came back sooner than he was supposed to, so we could finally meet baby Zeta. Tim also had a complete heart of gold. Every single time he went to Mexico, he'd bring something back for the girls. They were definitely a joy in his life. He actually kept a school picture tree in his wallet. Also, for my sister's wedding, Tim's car wouldn't start, and of course he knew we were all busy getting things ready, so he walked on over to the church because he wouldn't miss that for the world. Even though we weren't biologically family, Tim was a part of our family and had a very huge part in it. Tim also had a mind like no other, always wanting to accomplish crazy things which he thought were possible, but they sometimes just weren't. Like phoning the pizza delivery guy and asking him to get him a bottle of wine on the way to the house. We had to tell him, no Tim, we can't do that. He's a pizza delivery guy and that's his only job. So of course he sends me to get him a magnum-sized bottle of sparkling wine, but I don't go into liquor stores much, so got him a baby bottle instead. But he was still happy. Tim also loved his rum. He usually made himself overly strong drinks, which he probably shouldn't have made himself, and always had a blast. He always made sure to keep the bottle of Lamb's Navy close by, one at the shop, one at his house, and one at his other house, which was my mom's. This one time, he got my dad to sit on a 2x4 board and work on a window outside the American on the 3rd floor. Also convinced my dad to stand on a ladder on top of another ladder that they had tied together to work on the very, very top 4th floor. He was crazy. For my mom's birthday, Tim suggested we have it at the American. Well, my mom was over the moon on that one. So we had a huge party outside with a 24-foot screen playing an AC/DC concert. Tim was happy there was life there again one last time. And that night he had a little too much fun. And then his smart car. We tried so hard to start that thing, climbing all over the inside and outside, trying to find wires because he thought we could jumpstart it, but it needed a computerized key. I'm so glad he decided to stop working on that thing. One Thanksgiving, after my mom moved into her trailer, Tim asked if we were doing a dinner, but she didn't have a kitchen table to have dinner at. So when she came home from work, on Thanksgiving Day, Tim and Melvin were building a huge table inside her house. One that has seen many New Year's, Christmas, Valentine's Day, Easter, Thanksgiving, and birthday dinners. And Tim was always the first to know about the gatherings, of course, and the first to show up with his fork. Of course. So thanks to Tim, we could probably seat everyone at this church at that table, because it's a huge table. One of my best and most craziest memories of me and Tim was this one time. I went to the eye doctors to get my eyes looked at, and Tim was standing outside waiting for Melvin to pick him up. So I told him when I'm done, if he didn't come get you, I'll give you a ride home. And Tim has to get his eyes dilated, so his vision was super messed up. And it was just my luck, I had to get my eyes dilated too. So I go outside, and I'm supposed to wear these glasses insert things, and I wasn't gonna wear them. So Tim made me wear his cardboard frame set, And that probably made me look more weird, but he wouldn't let me go without them. So as we're driving, I take them off, but we both couldn't see anything. So here we are, I'm driving with no protection and can barely see. We go to the bakery to get food and coffee and then back to the shop. I couldn't drive normally, so I put those eye shades on and called my sister to come follow us back to the shop. And all day, me and Tim were wandering around this messed up vision. So glad we didn't bump into anything. And that was the day he found out he had glaucoma, finally. Tim also had a hidden secret talent he didn't share with us, and he could paint. And his paintings were actually amazing. I'm gonna hurt Tim that you didn't tell us about it, because that would have been amazing for us to see him paint some of those brilliant paintings he had done. We are so thankful that Dawn had seen Tim that morning and brought him to the hospital. It was a horrible last visit, but we would love to give you a huge thank you for being there to help Tim at his lowest point. We seriously can't thank you enough for that. And at 1:45 p.m. that very dreadful Sunday, we lost a great man. Tim will be so greatly missed. It's gonna be so weird not getting calls. Or seeing him walk around, driving around, hanging around, and having coffee at the shop. Asking us to go eat. Asking for barbecues or feasts, or just to sit around and drink. Tim was a great, super thoughtful person. His loss made a huge impact on all of our lives. And his memory will live on forever. I know we have missed out on a lot of good times that Tim has shared here with many friends. So at this time, I would like to call up anyone who has some memories to share about Tim. But remember to keep it clean, because we're in a church. All of his dirty stories you can share at his birthday party on June 26th.
Which will be at my house.
Hello, folks. I'm Garth, his youngest brother. I had many, many memories with him, and he was the most important part of his whole life. He was a very kind man, and always wanted to help somebody. And that's his legacy to me, is that he did a lot of weird stuff, but he did a lot of very good stuff. So, just remember him, that he was very special. Thank you.
My name is Rod Stevenson. I met Tim in Turner Valley 20 years ago. And I helped him move down here, and he tagged along to Mexico with me for 15 years. And everybody in Mazatlan knew who he was. And that cartel situation that happened was 6 hours away from Mazatlan.
Oh, that's right.
Trust the Canadian media to get it wrong. And Tim and I used to go to the police Christmas party, and then we'd go to the cartel New Year's party, and it was the same people. And they take your cell phone away. So there's a lot of good things happen with the cartel people, and a lot of bad things like everywhere else in the world. But, and he used to be the gas man in Turner Valley. And if you didn't pay your bill, guess who showed up to cut your gas off? I actually offered a guy a ride down. I said, I'm going to Tim's funeral. Yeah, he cut my gas off too often, so I'm not gonna go. I said, okay. If you'd have paid the bill, he's just doing what his boss told him to do. He's just, he's not the messenger. But anyway, we had a lot of fun in Mexico. Last trip we took to Oaxaca. He didn't come with me last year because I went to 9 cities in about 3 weeks. but, he knew his limitations, and, every time I helped him buy the hotel, and when I drive by, I'll remember him. Thank you.
So if anybody else wants to share some more stories, because the laptop's dead, so we have to go get the charger, and like, of course this would happen.
Like it died.
It died.
Yeah.
Where's the charger?
At the house.
Skylar's going to grab it right now.
Okay, so then why don't we do the free thing right now?
Yeah, okay.
Give us 5 minutes.